Certification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our live question and answer class. Please feel free to put your questions in the comments at any time, in the chat if you're watching live, and I'll turn to your questions in a moment. At the start of class today, I want to talk about fluent speaking and how the written word differs from what you hear in fluent speech. So there's a lot of places where we don't speak word by word in English. In this phrase, who are you going to see? I'm pronouncing all of those words correctly, but if I said it that way in a conversation, it would sound very choppy, very unnatural, and there's a lot of changes that I make as I link these words together and reduce sounds for fluent speech. Fluent speaking, when there's reductions and linking, is formal, it's professional, it's appropriate. This isn't about slang or casual speech. It's how we really talk in written words versus spoken English. So let's break this one down. First of all, when I say who are, I tend to say, rather than are, the R sound becomes more of just an sound. And as I go from the oo to the hooer, I end up with who. So I could write it as hooer, and notice as I move from that rounded oo to the unrounded hooer, you're going to have a little bit of a w sound in there. So hooer, who are you going to see? Or who are you going to see? So R is one of our most typical reductions where it goes from being an R to just an sound. And here that also means, even when I'm saying who are you going to see? If I kept the R, I would still have that w sound linking the rounded oo to the unrounded vowel. Who are you going to see? So who are you going to see? I can keep all the rest of it the same, or there are some more reductions that I might typically do in fluent speech. Who are you going to see? So one might be, you sometimes becomes ya. Who are you going to see? I would say that tends to be a little bit more casual and professional speech. I'd probably keep it as you, with the oo sound. Ya with the schwa is an option, and it's not going to sound too casual or too unprofessional, but I would say both of these options are good. So who are you? Who are ya? Who are you gonna? I would say if I'm going to use ya, then I'm going to change to gonna. Who are you gonna instead of going to? That's, again, a little bit more what I would do speaking with my family, my friends. In a professional situation, I might avoid using gonna and use more going to, or going to. So I keep my going. And then because I have this voiced continuous NG sound, going to, I sometimes change my T to a flap. So as I link there, the word to often sounds more like a flap and a schwa, going to, when it comes after a vowel or after something like an NG, which is voiced and continuous. And then C is not going to change. It's our stressed word. It's going to have that pure, clear E sound. So who are you going to see? Who are you going to see? Or who are you going to see? So same idea here. This is a T with a schwa, or just a very shortened vowel there, because the word to is one of our most commonly reduced words. So what we're looking at here is the word R and the word to tend to get reduced, and then the other words change because of the sound changes as I reduce R and as I reduce to. Taking it slowly, who are you going to see? Who are you going to see? Who are you going to see? Or who you're going to see? Or who are you gonna see? Who are you gonna see? So gonna is an abbreviation of going to, where we lose the T entirely, we change to a schwa, we lose the NG. Not wrong, you often are going to hear it in regular everyday speech, but I would say in professional speech it is considered a little bit less professional. So sticking with going to or going to is going to be useful. Feel free to ask questions about this particular phrase, this comment. ask questions about fluent speaking, pronunciation, whatever comes to your minds today, whatever will be helpful for you in improving your American English pronunciation and your fluent speaking in English. Welcome. It's nice to see so many of you here this morning. Do feel free to put your questions in the comments if you're watching this later on as a replay. We're meeting a little bit earlier than our usual Saturday time, and we've missed a few Saturdays due to conflicts, but we should be getting back to our regular Saturday times going forward after this weekend, back to our usual 9:15 West Coast time, 12:15 p.m. East Coast time on Saturdays. Okay, so I had a recent request actually today for the word abhor, and we'll add the word abhorrent to cover the pronunciation of these two words. So in the word abhor, we have second syllable stress, which means my letter A is not going to be the ah or the ah sound. It's going to be a reduced short little schwa sound. So in the IPA, we'll see it like that. I would write it for alternative spelling with UH. That's how I usually spell schwa, the sound, abhor. And then because our stress comes on the consonant sound, the H, my B is going to be a little bit unreleased. So, excuse me, I'll mark it there. I am closing my lips for the B, abhor, but you can hear how I'm not really doing abhor. There's no release of that B. I just release right into the H sound. And then this is a case where because the OR is stressed, letters OR do say or in this word. Often when we have letters OR at the end of the word in words like major or minor, then those ORs say ER because they're unimportant and unstressed at the end. But because we're stressing on the or, abhor, it's going to keep its or, clear or sound. Yeah, and then we have the same pattern in abhorrent. There's no O there, that's just a typo. Abhorrent, where we're going to have, again, the reduced then our stress on hor, and then we're just going to add the nt with a schwa or not a schwa at the end. So abhor, abhorrent, rent. I'm going to write the rent really almost just as having no vowel. There will be a little bit of a short schwa in there, abhorrent, but very minimal, very reduced vowel there. Yeah, that's a less commonly used word, but a useful one. So thank you for that request. Okay, some other recent requests. Let's take a look. We had a question about the word apparel. So in the word apparel, the tricky thing here is knowing where the stress is, what the vowels are. So in apparel, our stress is on the pair syllable, and letters AR here say the air diphthong, like in pair, like a pair of shoes. So a pair of shoes might be part of your apparel role. So then we have a little bit of an O sound there at the end. The IPA is going to be, again, a schwa, stress on the pair syllable. The air diphthong is spelled this way in the IPA. And then another schwa before our dark L, apparel. Very similar to the word apparent. Parallel, these are some other words that are spelled with the letters AR, but they have the sounds of air, apparel. Great. Okay, let's check and see what else we've had coming in recently. We have a question about the word naturalized citizen. So even though we have naturalized, looks like naturalized, looks like 4 syllables, we tend to do this and reduce it a little bit to 3 syllables. So we have first syllable stress, the a vowel, na, and then in the dictionary you might see nature, but they might put parentheses around that schwa because that means that syllable might drop. Rather than nature, it might become natra. If I do naturalized, then I have a schwa there as well. So I'm going to write this as naturalized. So if you think about this as naturalized, 3 syllables, it's okay if I have a little bit of a sound here between my T and my R. I can do naturalized. But because those schwas, this schwa is unimportant, naturalized. We just tend to take this schwa, make it a little bit longer, part of this syllable, and then we have letter E makes the I say its name, just like in light, naturalized. And then if I'm working on citizen, I have first syllable stress, letter C says the S sound, just like in the word sit, but unlike in the word sit, where I might have aspirated T, sit, with a puff of air, citizen, I'm going to have a flap T, which sounds a little bit more like a light D sound, citizen. So that's how I would write that. Naturalized citizen. So even though we have an EN spelling here, it's really more of an I sound at the end of that word, an unstressed reduced vowel. So that's a lot of syllables to say in a row. And you're going to be stressing on the na of naturalized and the si of citizen. Naturalized citizen. So some of you watching might be naturalized citizens, and you might be, also we use naturalized in a few other contexts as well. Do feel free, if you're watching live, to put your questions in the chat. You can ask about pronunciation, American accent, fluent speaking, whatever is most useful for you. I'll continue to work my way through some of recent requests. So we had a request for the words valid versus validity. So again, this is a place where knowing the rhythm of the word is really going to help you pronounce the vowel sounds correctly. So in valid, our stress is on the first syllable, val, which means we have the clear a vowel, like in cat or valley, for the letter A. So the IPA for that would be valid. And there's not really a way I would respell it. I would just write it maybe with this va. Think about that like the word vast or vat or cat, or even the word that. So you can think about that's valid, to be able to match that a vowel. That's valid. But when we get to validity, we have the stress on the li syllable, and so we lose our clear vowel for the letter A. So rather than validity, we have validity. So I would rewrite that with the UH for my schwa sound, and then I would make my lid uppercase so it looks stressed, validity. And so notice that even though we have a D here and a T here, validity, both of those are pronounced as flap sounds. So I've written them as Ds here. Both the letters T and the letters D turn into flaps in the middle of words when they're followed by unstressed syllables. And a flap just means I'm lifting my tongue to behind my teeth in the same place that I do a T or a D sound, but I'm not bursting the air out. So it's not a D or a T, but rather a light D. Validity. So yeah, the IPA for that, you're going to see your schwa, and then the stress comes before the lid syllable. In the dictionary, you'll probably see an id, and then you'll see a T. Some dictionaries might mark that T as being flapped. Others will just use a T and a D, and you'll have to know that in the American accent, both of those are pronounced the exact same way. So he questioned the validity of the documents. You need a valid ID to go through security at the airport. Okay, very good. Welcome. Nice to see so many of you joining us today at our earlier time. Next week, we'll be back to our regular Saturday time. And of course, we'll have a new video for you releasing on Tuesday. Each week, we have a new video for pronunciation, American accent, answering your requests and questions that come in throughout the week in the comments, also from here in this class. Okay, we have a question about masculinity and femininity. So first of all, masculinity. There's another flap sound like we were talking about. And this is stressed on the second to last syllable. So a lot of times words that end in ity are stressed on the syllable right before the ity, for the ity. So thinking about that, building from the back, think about it as lin, ity. And watch your ity ending that you have a flap for this T, you have an unstressed or a lax I sound and a tense E sound. So just like in city, pretty, validity, etc., masculinity, femininity, you want to have that ity to be relaxed but correct at the end. So lin is stressed. And then for the mascia, we do have the clear a vowel, like in the word mask or like in the word cat we were just talking about, mascia. And then you may hear if somebody's just saying this word by itself, they may say mascu with a little bit of an oo sound there, but really it's more of a schwa sound. So because that syllable is unstressed, mascia, masculinity, you don't need a clear oo for that letter U. It's just an just a schwa sound. But notice that this letter U does have the y sound as well. So it's not just masca or mascu, but rather mascia, mascia. So thinking about, it might be helpful to think about it as mask, ya, masculinity, masculinity. And then when we change to femininity, we still again stress on the syllable right before the ity. So femininity, we're stressing on the nin syllable. We do have a clear vowel for the in fem, just like in men or them. So thinking again as fem, you can think of this syllable as an I or even an femme, femme. Doesn't matter, it's just very reduced, not a clear syllable. Femininity. There's our ity ending again. So masculinity, femininity. Yeah, sometimes with longer, many syllable words, it's helpful to go slowly, syllable by syllable, and then speed back up. Thank you for that request. I hope that's helpful for you. Okay, we have a question about the phrase martial art. So martial art, I'll include the S. A lot of times we talk about martial arts, the full thing. Or you can say there's, karate is a martial art, or he practices the martial arts. Sometimes we use the S there. So martial has the letters AR saying the R sound, so I just would rewrite that again with AR, mar. And then here's a case where TI has the SH sound, and the letter A just says a schwa, or it's very, very reduced. So martial, you're going to think about this vowel just barely being there, martial. And then again, AR in art also has the R sound, martial art or martial arts. Yeah, good word, thank you. And then we have a question about how to pronounce importantly. So there's a number of different ways that people pronounce important and importantly. So I'll walk you through some of them. I would also suggest that after class, take a look at, if you go to our channel page and you look across the menu at the top, there's a search box on the far right. You can type in your word, and the videos I've already made for your request will be there. Because for the word importantly, you might find it helpful to hear the multiple different ways that native speakers say it. It depends on where you are, depends on your age. I've heard it as importantly, importantly. All of those are correct and used. I think probably the most common is importantly, where we use unreleased T's. And so this gets very kind of muted in the part. We don't hear the burst of air for those. We're stressing on the pour, so we have important. So the T, that T doesn't come out. Import, I just stop the air, and then I only have the N sound. We don't make any sound for the A there. Important, and then I stop that T as well, and I release on the L. Importantly. You're going to hear multiple ways that people pronounce this. So that's definitely something I would recommend checking out my video for. If you have difficulty finding it on the channel, please feel free to leave me a comment after class to remind me to send you in the comments a direct link to the video that you're asking about. I'm always happy to respond to comments here on the channel. I do go through those almost daily, giving you answers to your questions, adding your words to my list to cover in future videos, or directing you to resources here on the channel or on our website, speechmodification.com, to help you with your questions. Speaking of speechmodification.com, we have a lot of free resources there, including additional videos, lessons, audio files that you can use for practice, and some really inexpensive online courses. I try to keep those very affordable for people, since I know many of you are watching from all around the world, and maybe you don't have a very big budget for working on this, but you still deserve to have high quality teaching materials to learn about American English pronunciation and American accent. So check all that out on our website, speechmodification.com. Okay, we have a question about the three sounds, these three sounds. So she's asking about ah, and ah. So this sound is just used in British English. We don't use that in American English. We do have the ah sound, like in not hot in American English. And usually letter O is going to say the ah sound, like not and hot. Then we also have the ah sound in American English. This one I'll rewrite as ah. So I tend to spell it, excuse me, with AH, but because we think of that ah sound for a lot of languages, they spell that with letter A. In American English, we tend to spell it with letter O. The ah sound in English, we spell with AW, AU, O, a lot of different sounds. And then in British English, we would say in American English, not hot. British English, they'd say not hot. So this is a little bit more open and rounded. So it's helpful to understand the placement of vowels, as well as the presence or absence of rounded lips for the vowels. For the ah vowel, like in not hot, it's very open and very unrounded. So when I'm saying ah, not, my tongue is down, my mouth is open, there's no rounding of my lips. When I'm saying ah, like in caught law, ah, my mouth is still pretty open, my tongue is still pretty far down, but my lips are a little bit rounded, which means that it's going to close my jaw a little bit. So if I have, for example, doc, like doctor, and dog, then for doc, no rounding, more open, dog, you can see doc, dog. My mouth is still pretty open, but maybe slightly more closed because my lips are slightly rounded for the ah vowel. And then the British ah is further back in the throat. It's more open and it's rounded. So it's basically similar to our ah, but rounded. But I would say if you're learning American English, you don't ever hear that vowel in American English and you don't want to use it. So you have basically these two vowels. One thing to note with these vowels is that there are some places in the US where those have merged and they end up sounding just more like the ah. So even though I come from a place where I grew up where we said dog, some places in the US they might just say dog. They might not round that vowel anymore, but they never are going to use a rounded vowel for the ah. So they're never going to say doc or not or hot. So if you have to only learn one, focus on the ah unrounded. For many places, it's helpful to also know this ah more rounded because we still use that in a lot of regions in the US. I do have a number of videos talking about those vowels and that topic, giving you some contrast words, showing you more about the placement. I also highly recommend our Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com because it's going to walk you through all of the IPA sounds, how we spell those sounds in English, give you example words, talk about the most common words we use, and also talk to you about what common accent error patterns you have. So it's helpful to understand, be able to hear and listen to the difference in vowels, but to know how your native language might affect how you're hearing those vowels and how you're pronouncing them. Once you know about your accent patterns, you can really focus in on separating out the vowels and hearing the American English vowels and being able to use those correctly, knowing where they go, how they're spelled. All of that is broken down for you in our Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com. Thank you for that question. It's a very good one. Okay. We have a question about the word middle, whether it has with a D or a flap T. So it does have a flap T. So if I'd used a D here, it would sound like middle. So when I say, for example, the word dull, I really stop the air and then it bursts out. But in middle, I'm just lifting my tongue and dropping it back or moving it right to the L position and not bursting up any, not bringing up, building up any pressure or not bursting out the air. So middle is a flap, just like it sounds exactly like the word little. So two T's and an LE or two D's and an LE sound the same. We have, battle, middle, etc. So the TT and DD in the middle of words are most frequently pronounced as flap sounds versus a true D or a true T sound. Yeah, great. Good question. Okay, we have a question about how to master rhythm and intonation in English. So there are some basic patterns to learn. The best way to learn intonation, I would say, is to learn a few of the basic rules and then do a lot of shadowing and imitating so you can hear where we lengthen things and where we make them shorter. There is some pitch modulation, there are some ups and downs, but holding things longer or shorter is the most important. For most of what we're saying, we're kind of staying at a medium pitch, and then we tend to either at the end rise up to ask a question or fall off to show a statement. Once you know that about pitch, there's not a lot you want to really be doing to change pitch. You want to focus more on stretching out on the stressed words. Here on the channel, you can find my intonation playlist. It's going to walk you through a lot of those basics. And then in our American Accent 6-week course on speechmodification.com, I walk you through everything you need to know to understand American intonation and to use it correctly. Great question. Okay, we have a question about bumpy ride. Excuse me. My voice is having a bit of a bumpy ride this morning. So bumpy is stressed on the bum syllable and it has the sound. So I wouldn't really change the spelling. I'll write it with UH. In bumpy, B, this P is unaspirated. I'm still going to write it with the letter P, but it sounds a little bit like a B, bumpy. So not bumpy, no burst of air like I would say if I was saying peel, for example, if the word started with a P. And then ride, letter E makes the I say its name, so it has the same I sound as in the word right, but it ends with a D, so I'll hold that vowel a little longer. It's been a bumpy ride for the year 2025 so far. Okay, great. We have a question about in all right, is the L silent? So now, while I won't hear all right with a strong L there, and some people will say all right, I do recommend thinking of the L because it's going to affect how I say this vowel. So if I think about the word all right, I'm going to be pronouncing that correctly. If I think about dropping the L, all right, I may change my vowel a little bit. So in casual speech, I would say the L can be a little bit reduced or gone. You definitely don't want to linger on that L because you're preparing for the R sound. All right, all right. I use a dark L. In this case, I think it's one where I'm just making the dark L with the back of my tongue instead of lifting the front of my tongue. So I'm ready for the right. All right, all right. But I would practice it with the lift. All right, so that you get this all part of the word to sound correct. So you have that ah vowel there. All right. Yeah, good question. And you'll hear different responses on that, but there's, more than one way that people will pronounce certain words in English, and all right is one of them. Okay. Question about if we can drop the lar syllable in particularly. No, we can't, particularly. So that'll sound incorrect if you don't have that syllable. So in particularly, the LAR can sound just like a lur, particularly. Do check out my video for that, for particular and particularly, here on the channel. That'll help you break down those words in more detail, but definitely can't drop that lur syllable. Great. Okay, so nice to see so many of you here this morning. Thank you for being a part of class. It was a little earlier than usual. Next week we'll be back to our regular time. And on Tuesday we'll have a new video released for you. I think we're looking at fluent speaking this week. The channel does cover pronunciation, fluent speech, American accent, a lot of different topics for you. If you have a question I didn't get to today, feel free, please come back, put it in the comments for me so I can add it to my list to cover in a future class, or come back next Saturday and ask me again live, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks for a great class, great question today, and nice to see everyone. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you again soon.